Happy 4th of July. In today's Omar Vision tutorial, I'm going to go over how to slowly rotate toward a target. And this is my second video on this because on the first one, it was all three axes slowly rotate toward a target. On this one, I'm going to do a little extra something special and show you how to do it on just any, selected, not all three. If you wanted to do two or one, you could rotate on two or one axes only. So here I have a project, and I have a little display here to show that this arrow is going to rotate and point toward one of the cars. So I think the first car it points to is car number 1, and I press play, and you can see the arrow slowly rotates and just lock on. Slowly rotates to car number 1, and in this rotation it's at angle 13 on the X and 86 on the Y. Okay, and then you can see the arrow also has like texture on it, so you can tell if it's spinning or not. And I just press other numbers, like I can press 2, and it'll rotate toward 2, or I can press 3, and it'll rotate toward 3. Whatever I press, it rotates toward it. But if I turn off the x-axis rotation, let's say, and the z-axis rotation, nothing was happening on the z anyway, and now I press 2, you can see that it's just rotating on the y, or 3, it just rotates on the y. Okay? Or I could just have it rotate on the x only. So now the x, the cars, they're at different heights off of the ground. This one's on the ground, this one's a little bit above it, and this one's even higher up. So if I say 3, you can see it's only rotating on the x, so it's not even rotating on the y to point toward 3, but it points at the height of 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so it points at different heights. And then if I had it on the z, nothing happens because none of these things are rotated on their z-axis to have it happen. All right, so that's the demonstration of the project, but now what's the code that did this rotation? Let me stop the project and open up the script. Okay, so here we have the script, and let me just collapse the definitions here. And all right, we have some public variables here on the script. This script is going to get placed on the arrow object in the Unity thing. It's placed on this arrow. Okay, and the script, the public things it wants is the speed it's going to rotate at. So the bigger the number, the faster it's going to rotate toward the target. And then I give it the 3 targets that it's going to rotate between. So this is a game object list. And I just drag and dropped each of these car objects, 1, 2, and 3. And then there's the text display object, so I could display the information over here in the UI. So those 3. Then internally in the script, I just have these 4 variables: the current target, This is an index into the targets array. And then these are the 3 booleans if I'm turning on X, Y, or Z. So let me just start off with what you want is to figure out how do I do the slowly rotate toward target. So that's this function right here, slowly rotate toward target. This is called from the update function. So first thing I do is I get the transform of my source object, which is the arrow, and the transform of the target object, which is one of the cars, whichever one is the current car. Then I have to figure out what's the rotation going to be when I'm pointing at the target. So the rotation when I'm pointing at the target, I could use Quaternion.LookRotation, and then I'll get the, I just submit the target position minus the source position, and that will give me the look rotation for my arrow to fully point at the target. And then over here, what I do, this is the full rotation on the X, Y, and Z axis, but since I know I have those checkboxes, I may only want to partially rotate on the X, or the Y, or the Z, or any combination of. So I'll use my variables for X turn. This is a shorthand notation with the question mark and the colon. The way you read this notation is X turn equals true. This is a Boolean check here, true or false. X turn equals true. If it's true, then after the question mark, I'll do the first thing if it's true. And if it's false, then I'll do the second thing. So this is like a Boolean comparison. Then after the question mark, the first thing is the true value. The second thing is if it's false value. So that's what this question mark thing is here. So I'll use for angle X in my partial, it'll either be no angle at all, or it'll be the one from the full. Then the same thing for the Y and the Z. So that gives me my rotation target partial because it's not all 3. I'll set the Euler angles property of my quaternion. So because I have the x, y, and z, and I don't have to supply the w, and then I'll get the partial. So here's the full, and here's the partial. This partial is what's allowing me to do rotation on one, on a subset of all three angles. And now here, this is the command that does the slow rotation. It's the Quaternion.RotateTowards. This does the rotation slowly per frame because I say rotate towards. This is my source rotation of where my arrow is. This is where I want my arrow to point to. I'm going to use the partial. And then this third value is the increments between on frames. So I could use time delta time times rotate speed, and each frame of the game it will be slowly getting toward that target. The higher the rotate speed, the faster it gets there. Okay, so I think the signature, right, the signature for rotate towards is quaternion from, quaternion to, and then how many degrees at a time does it change. Okay, so that's what allows the slow rotation. Yeah, and this is called from the update, and update, as you know, is called every frame of the game. So first thing I do is I get the user input. That's what the user presses to pick the current. So they could either press 1, 2, or 3 to pick the different cars, or they could use the arrow keys to scroll through the cars. And how do you know which car? It's the current, and that's going to be the target's array. Then the other thing it does, then it does a slow rotation, and then it updates the text display on the screen. That's this text right here, which in the canvas is text display. And that's just simply, let me get together a string of, first I'll, this transform local Euler angles, that's the arrow's actual angles. And then I just display the text with the string.format. Then these x turn, y turn, z turn, the way those values get set, it's from these toggle buttons that I added here to the user interface, these toggle buttons. And on each of the toggle buttons, if you look at the inspector, there is an on value changed. So what I did was I dragged the arrow object here, right? And then from the arrow object, I can call from the slowly rotate script, toggle on turn X. And I did that for the Y and the Z. And here you can see toggle on turn X. It just flips the value. If it's true to false and false to true, it just toggles the value back and forth. Okay, and that's basically it. That's basically it. Just one more time to show the thing running. Here we go. It's just simply that's it. And I can just press keys or the arrows and switch between the cars, the three cars, or three. And then I could also just do it on the y-axis by unchecking those two. And then I could press it there. You know, there you go. So it's a little bit more advanced than the other rotate toward. Have fun.